Has she seen my shoes?
No. I just, like, I'm one of those people, like, if you just say okay to text message, for some reason that, like...
Oh, yeah. I'm always the, are you mad at me?
You're an are you mad at me friend?
Yeah.
I'm also an are you mad at me friend.
I am always going to be an are you mad at me. Even if Haley says, like, okay, no problem. I'm like, are you mad at me?
Are you mad?
Because the way you sent that text just didn't seem like you were okay.
We should do an episode on the Are You Mad at Me girls. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 devices going. I'm gonna move this down actually so we can hear it.
Remember that about 11 minutes we've actually started talking about things.
About things that are relevant.
Things that are relevant.
Okay, so this is Life with Purpose podcast. My name is Amanda. You guys don't know Kat yet, but this is Kat.
Hello, I'm Kat.
And this is awkward for us because we already had 5 episodes filmed and recorded.
We did not realize that the on switch was not on our mic.
Oh, it's actually not.
Mandy, again?
Okay, but at least this time I have audio.
We're gonna get our shit together one of these days. You wait and see.
Well, okay, so we did 2 videos. We did like an introduction video, and then we did an episode about our moms. Mm-hmm. And there was like this high-pitched, like gurgling, weird.
It's because your house is haunted.
Maybe my house is haunted.
Actually,
it was built in the 1930s.
Oh yeah, it's definitely haunted.
For sure. Someone's definitely died in there, probably.
Oh, for sure.
Probably.
Buried under there.
There's a body in my backyard. Yeah. The house, when we first moved in, Josh was like, this is how spoiled he is. So, like, the house, like, creaks, and, like, it's wood, so it, like, settles at night. And he said the first night we were there, he slept like absolute garbage because he could hear the house settling all night. And I, like, kind of looked at him, and I was like, have you never, like, lived in an old house before? And he's like, I've only ever lived in new builds my entire life. And I was like, cool. Okay, well, welcome to old houses.
Welcome to poor.
Fun fact.
That's the way it feels.
Sorry that you married me and now you're poor.
No, he doesn't feel that way.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little about yourself.
Okay.
In the corniest way.
A little about myself in the corniest way. Well, so again, my name is Kat. Hello. I have a pretty cool name. My name is Kat Hazel. The very first time your husband met me, he thought that my name on Instagram was a lie. He was like, I thought it was just like some cute name he put together. He was like, it sounds like a porn star name. And I was like, oh, great, lovely.
Kat Hazel.
Kat Hazel. Yeah.
It's just a porn star.
He thought it was like a porn star name.
Wow.
It's fine with Josh. Let's see. So I grew up in a very, very, very small town in Texas. Never going back to Texas. So the town's name is Hereford. There's a shit ton of cows. Hereford.
It sounds like it's named after an old cowboy guy.
It's actually named after a certain type of cow / steer. It was my town was very racist. In fact, it was so racist that our mascot was the white faces. It's a white-faced cow, but white faces. Shout out to Hereford. Never going back there to live again.
If you listen, or if you're just listening, you cannot see my face. I completely dropped my jaw.
I also cheered for the white faces, so I was the only, like, one of the few black people even there that did that. Anyways, to speak more to my ethnicity, I'm actually really love my ethnicity. It took me a very long time to actually love myself and to actually, like, be happy and love the skin I'm in, because for so long I think that, white was the ideal beauty standard. But I'm actually triracial, so I am part African American, part Hispanic, and part Native American. I'm learning some more just about my heritage and, like, about my life, just because I've never had really any of my biological family there to, like, teach me a whole lot of things. I was raised by my biological grandparents, I should say my maternal grandparents. Never knew my father. That's another really long story. I know him and we know each other through social media, but I don't, like, actually know him. My mother is in prison, which is another episode that me and Mandy will get through.
Which is an episode I'm actually really upset that we lost.
That was a pretty good episode.
That was a good episode.
And also, I feel like that one was very, like, solemn, so I feel like we can, like, pump it up a little bit.
Yeah, we can be exciting before we can be sad.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. That was actually, so when Kat and I met, we realized that we had a lot of really like strange things in common. And not like happy things. Like we had a lot of very like sad things in common that are hard to find, but that like both of our moms or my mom was in prison. She's deceased now, but yeah, we both have parents in prison.
Yes.
And
we both grew up very poor in very small towns.
Yeah.
We both had some pretty big mental health issues, and issues with self-harm, kind of stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's like more that we've talked about. Oh, we have like almost the same like dream as far as like where we see our careers going and like the like businesses we want to build, which we figured out so long ago.
Oh yeah, that was like one of the things that we talked about was like having a one-stop shop resource center, right, for people in need and stuff like that. So, and like the direction that we wanted to take the podcast in, like we were just like really on the same page from the get-go, which was exciting.
That was very exciting. I definitely loved it. So yeah, other than that, my current profession, I am a diversity and inclusion specialist at a pretty cool aerospace company. Hopefully I get to stay with them. We will see. I have a bachelor's degree in political science with attention to DEI. And I'm currently working on my master's degree, which is human relations, specializing in diversity, inclusion, and strategic impact, which is a pretty cool program, which I might actually be switching over to an MBA for because of the current political climate and just, you know, all of that nice stuff, which we won't get into. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. You guys will learn some more of like our personalities as we get more comfortable and not as awkward.
That was like when I first started the podcast with Addie, shout out to Adeline, we really miss her, but I think you'll be just as great. Yeah, the first couple episodes were like really awkward because like you and I can have a conversation, but like when there's a camera in the room and you're like talking to people who are not there, like it does feel really awkward and it's hard to get used to.
Definitely.
And I like just recently also like restarted my YouTube channel, and that's something I'm going to be working on this year, but I definitely feel awkward because I feel like I'm talking to no one.
Yeah, so. It definitely is a weird thing to like get used to. It's so funny because we just spent like the first hour here like chatting each other up, and now we're like on video, we're like, what do we need to talk about? Me and Haley joke way too much. I think it's like so funny just because like I work in diversity and inclusion, and my fiance Haley is a cop. A
white cop.
A very, very white cop.
A wealthy white cop with Republican parents.
Very Republican parents. You know, we're making it work, and they love me, so that's great. We've been able to like keep things separate and just not get into a whole lot of that. But
yeah, I think the goal on the podcast here is like it's important for our listeners to know like where we stand in certain political aspects, but I don't want to be too polarizing here because a lot of the things that we're going to talk about, like the podcast is called Life with Purpose, right? So we want to talk about like what makes us feel like we have purpose and why we're here. And I think you and I both come to the conclusion that a lot of the things that we've been through are purposeful and meaningful, and some of the ways that we have suffered can bring some clarity and just clarity to other people, but also give people like hope that like these are things that you can get through.
I completely agree. I'm like, so one of my favorite podcasts that I'm listening to right now, they'll just like hold this like extra segment away from talking about true crime, where they're just like actually catching up with each other and just like talking about like how life is going and kind of things like that. And one of the things I love so much about them is that even though they're like talking about like, God, like right now I'm going through like a really shitty time and I'm doing my best, they always like additionally name like the good things that are happening in their lives, and like the way that they are showing up for themselves and the way that they're doing self-care, the way they're showing up for each other, kind of things like that. So I definitely am kind of actually happy that we're re-recording, because we lost everything, so that even in those like more solemn topics that we talk about, we can make sure that we additionally add something good. Yeah, that's something good in there.
Yeah, I agree. I just am so like blown away at the fact that we lost 5 episodes. So we started recording in February.
Yeah.
And the goal was to start episodes in March. Mm-hmm. And here we are now, the second week of April. And I think should all go well, our first episode will probably go out next week, which is the 3rd week of April. So
I'm like the biggest proponent of like things happen for a reason.
Yeah.
Like I always am like, no, like life went this way for a reason. So I am convinced that like this happened for a reason.
And we started talking about you joining the podcast in, I want to say like September or October.
It was in October or November because we went to Alice in Wonderland. And that's whenever we started talking about it.
Yeah, I think I was venting to you about how I was upset that I thought I had another person who was interested in the podcast, and our schedules really just didn't work out. And we just could never get together and record and whatnot. And so I was like, oh, I'm just really frustrated because I could not picture a podcast where I got handed to podcasters who do it alone.
Oh God, yeah, that's so much work.
Because just like, again, like,
and like being strict with your own schedule and like making it like you have nobody else holding you accountable but you.
And like with like I said, with my YouTube channel, like I feel awkward enough like talking to the camera.
Yeah.
And I have like topics to talk about, but trying to like come up with like and make it entertaining in a way that like it's something that people could just listen to. I feel like I would have to write a whole script, so I'm just really thankful that I don't have to do the podcast alone.
I think it's always better with two people, especially with like us finding each other some crazy life way, which we'll definitely get into more of the like equivalencies we have and the differences that we have. Mandy's almost been murdered and I haven't, which is great for me, not so much for you.
I've also been stabbed several times.
Mandy's also been stabbed and I never have.
You've also been through things that I've never been through.
Yeah, pretty good stuff.
We have true crime stories. We have
our mother stories.
The stories about our moms. Yeah, and then we've had a lot of other things happen, like falling outs, and I have some crazy car accident stories we can talk about at some point. Also, it was just like it's really funny because like I like to think about when we met, and then Haley told me later, she like texted me and was like, Kat says that she thinks that you guys are just going to be really good friends.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that you told her that because I was like, oh, like that was like my motivation. Because I do not like new people.
Yeah. You're definitely not a like welcome new person kind of thing.
No,
especially because like you're not a hugger and you're not like somebody who like wants to just hop in and get to know everybody. And I'm definitely that person of like, oh my God, tell me about yourself and where did you come from and like.
And I think it's funny.
Everything.
I think I come across as like really rude, but I just am actually like I'm an introverted extrovert, and so when you first meet me, I'm incredibly shy, and I also know that a lot of the things that I have to contribute, like the stories and like my experiences and stuff, are not normal, and so like when people hear like some of the things that I've been through, they're just like, oh wow, like. I feel unrelatable, and so I don't know how to talk to new people, especially if they don't know how to trauma dump.
That's the best kind of bonding is trauma dumping.
I love a good trauma dump.
Which we'll definitely get into some more. I do think that it's really awesome, though, that we have like different personalities because you're an omnivore is what it's called when you're an extroverted introvert.
Oh.
And I'm just an extroverted extrovert. I love meeting new people. I love going new places. I love trying everything that's new for me, which I'll get into how my life kind of like went down that path rather than another path with siblings, which is another topic.
Yeah, that's another thing we have in common.
Definitely have in common.
We have good sibling stories.
We have great sibling stories. But yeah, there will be some really interesting things, and I'm really excited also to like maybe get ideas from you guys of like things that we could possibly talk about or research or like have information about. Like
I love to do that.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, at some point we'll also talk about it's like on my YouTube channel. I think the direction that I am really starting to go is like I want to do a lot of digging into things like brands and like how brands treat their employees and how they treat the environment, and like I want to do like a lot of branding research.
Yeah.
And so I think like some of that can definitely like overflow into the podcast and stuff. And like I said, like I'd like our listeners to know where we stand like in the political climate, but not necessarily be the focus. We just like want people to know that like they're not alone in the things that they experience.
Definitely, like the things you've been through is kind of like how you perceive your life. And so I know that for me, a lot of the times, whenever I maybe get frustrated with somebody who doesn't have the same view as me, I a lot of times take a step back and I'm just like, the kind of environment you grew up in, this is all that you know. And the kind of environment I grew up in, this is what I know. So I can't expect you to always agree with me or understand me, and that's not my job to teach you. If you're curious, you go learn. But I think that's a great thing kind of like that I've learned about politics, is that there's a certain time and place for it, and I'm not just always going to talk about it, especially if it's with family.
I think to that point, like, if anything, maybe we can allow people to learn that sometimes you just have to give people grace because they grew up differently, or they were raised differently, or they now live in a politically different climate.
You're a product of your environment, for sure. And I think that there's one of the biggest things that I always say, even though, like if I'm ever having like a disagreement with somebody and you know, somebody's like, oh, well, like that's the product of their environment, and what am I going to do, stop loving somebody because that's their belief, you know, kind of thing. My biggest thing is like, you can love somebody and still correct them. Like if somebody says something insensitive, you can love them and still say, hey, like that's not okay to say anymore.
Yeah.
And the more that person is just like corrected, the more it becomes just like embedded in their brain of like, oh, I've said this a couple times, people got onto me, let me just change my language around this. So
yeah,
it's always two things can be true at once, right?
I think that's going to be a big underlying thing in a lot of our episodes, is that two things can be true at once. To kind of wrap things up, one theme that came up continuously as we recorded our previous episodes was that if you don't laugh about it,
you'll cry.
So
I feel like that's going to be something we use in every episode to kind of sign off. Hopefully it'll change the minds and just kind of different ways of thinking about trauma and working through it, and just realizing that those hard things that you went through are hard, and you do want to cry about them, laugh about them.
Yeah, laugh about it instead, and then maybe you'll learn to live your life with purpose. So we'll see you guys next time. And just remember that if you don't laugh about it,
you'll cry. Look at you. That was a great way to end that.
That was a good way to end it. Okay.